Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I have what I think is a very exciting video for all of us. It's not a video that I've ever seen done before, especially not in the English community, and I thought it'd be really cool to make. I want to give you a quick breakdown of what the video is going to be about, just for a little bit of context. I think without the context you might be a bit lost, so just bear with me. I'll only take 20 seconds. So I've been playing the game for a while, and just throughout my life of playing this game, I always come up with random questions, like what would happen if this, or very specific, hyper-specific situations and scenarios. And some time ago I decided, hey, you know what, I should write these down, make a list, and then sometime after I'll go over the list, and if I have enough good ones, I should make a video out of it investigating what would happen, like what would actually happen, which is the title of this video, what would happen. So I did exactly that. I put together a list of what I think are interesting scenarios and situations, and I went and investigated them. So you guys are going to see that. You're going to see me ask the question, and you're going to see the answer. And the reason I say that you're going to see me pose a question is because also pose is not a, is that English word? I know in French you say poser une question, but anyways, so in English, whatever, you're going to see me pose a question, and I'm going to pause, freeze frame. I'm going to give you options, multiple choice. And the reason I'm doing it this way is I want to see what you guys know and what you don't know. I want to see if I taught anyone anything. Let's just get right into it, and I hope you guys enjoy. Let's go. Alright, our first situation is based around the combined effect of the Cobra legendary sword and the masquerader spell Hysterical Mask. So Hysterical Mask and Cobra both have very similar effect, the effect being that hitting around the target at the end of their turn. Not the target, but like the bearer. So in this case, the masquerader. So at the end of the masquerader's turn, the Cobra is going to do damage, but also the Hysterical Mask is going to do damage. And the reason I think this is interesting is I thought of the situation where what if a very, very, very low HP panda carried an also very, very low HP target, right? So then the masquerader would go and finish next to them with these two passive effects. What would happen, right? Because there's going to be two damages, but the panda is carrying, and each damage individually is enough to kill either of them. So what's going to happen? Let's see, is it going to be A, the masquerader does his two passive spells, the panda will take both of them, and then the Cylarx on top will be fine? Is it going to be B, the first line of damage kills the panda, and then the second line of damage kills the Cylarx? Or is it going to be C, the masquerader dies somehow? I don't know. And we can see here that it was B. So it was B, the first line damage goes to the panda, and the second line damage goes to the Cylarx, killing them both. On to the next one. Our second situation takes us over to the Elizabel dungeon. The Elizabel dungeon has a particular mechanic with the boss in that you don't really have to finish the fight classically. The way the fight works is that the boss has 100% HP, of course, and when you bring her down to 75% HP, she's going to switch sides. She's going to jump over to your camp, your side of the map, put out a glyph, where if you're within the glyph, you just deal insane damage, and any mob that steps within the glyph also takes insane damage. But she always jumps to the same cell and puts the glyph in the same place, of course. And I was just curious, like, what would happen if I try to block that cell, right? So that's the premise here. I'm going to try to block that cell as best I can. So I took my rogue, and big thanks to Quinator who helped me do this all as best as we could. So I'm going to take my rogue, I'm going to put a bomb on the cell that she would go to. I'm going to make the bomb invulnerable, gravity state, unmovable state, and the panda is going to put stabilization on it to make it rooted state. So the question is, when we bring Elizabel to her next phase and she wants to jump over to that cell, what's going to happen? So is she A, just going to switch positions with the bomb? Is she B, going to kill the bomb? Or is she C, just going to stay where she is and put the glyph there? And we see that it's actually A. Interestingly enough, no state seems to be able to stop her from switching the bomb. Unmovable, rooted, nothing. And so the reason I did invulnerable state was to hopefully stop her from killing the bomb, but that wasn't apparently even something we had to watch out for. Now, we did do one extra experiment. This is not part of the question, but really quick, we thought, hey, what if we put a portal there and the portal comes out somewhere far? Then what would happen? Would she just stay there, or what would happen? And I'll just show you guys the answer. So it turns out she actually goes through the portal and goes somewhere else with her state. And I feel like that's interesting. You could maybe exploit that, because if you make her pop up her glyph in the enemy camp, then they're going to spawn in it and take just insane damage, which could be interesting. Interesting strategy. That's it for this one. Our third situation takes us over to the Foggernaut class. And if you're curious how I have access to all these classes, by the way, because there's going to be other ones with different classes, I'm just using the tournament server. And the tournament server just gives you access to all the classes and all the gear. So yeah, that's that. This one is actually particularly interesting. I think this is one of my favorite ones in the video. And it has to do with the spell recursiveness. Basic overview of the spell recursiveness, essentially what it does is it teleports you symmetrically to any turret and then pushes you 4 cells. And the interesting thing here is that if there's a turret at the end of the 4 cells, wherever you end up, then it's going to teleport you symmetrically again and push you another 4 cells until as many turrets as there are. So I was thinking like, okay, what if your path is interrupted, right? What if you step on a lethal trap, for example, before being teleported symmetrically? Does that trigger anything? And turns out that no, you get teleported. And then I thought, okay, a lethal trap doesn't move you, but what if we did something that moved you? And here I'm actually going to run 2 situations on the screen at the same time. I think it's going to be particularly interesting. One is going to be using SRAM, and one's going to be using Heliotrope. So the SRAM is going to put a repulsive trap, which is going to push the Foggernaut into where they would be teleported symmetrically, and the Heliotrope is going to put portals in a way that's going to make it so that you end up where you would be teleported symmetrically. It sounds confusing by audio, but if you look at the visuals that I'm presenting on screen, I think hopefully it should make sense. So looking at the situation here, what do you think is going to happen, right? What would happen? So here are the 4 options. Either A, neither of them are going to work. Once the movement happens, they're going to stop and they're not going to be teleported symmetrically again and have the cycle continue, or the chain continue rather. Is it B, only the SRAM side of this is going to work? Is it C, only the Heliotrope side of this is going to work? Or is it D, they're both going to work? What do you think? And as it would turn out, both of them work. Isn't that so cool? I had no idea. I have no idea what's going to happen going into these until I test them. And honestly, I'm quite amazed. This is really cool. This is just really cool. I have nothing else to say. And I hope you guys liked that one. But that's it for that. Let's go on to the next one. Of course, I couldn't make a video without including my favorite class in the world being Rogue. And specifically, we're going to be looking at one spell of Rogue being Remission. Remission, everyone knows, protects bombs, but it also has a secondary effect that a lot of people seem to not know. If you do Remission on an ally, then if that ally gets hit in close combat, whoever hit them, allies included, anyone who hits them in close combat gets pushed back, I think 7 cells, which is quite a bit. And so the interesting thing here is, what if we synergize that with an Aegis? Then what would happen? So if we put an Aegis, put the Rogue inside the Aegis's glyph, remissioned the Rogue, and then hit him in close combat, well, what would happen? Because in theory, the Aegis should take the damage. So are you going to be pushed back? Is it going to be considered that you hit? Let's take a look at the situation, and here are the options. Is it A, the Aegis is going to take the damage, and it's not going to be considered that you hit the Rogue, so you're not going to get pushed back? Or is it B, the Aegis is going to take the damage, because of course it will, but it will still be considered that you hit the Rogue in close combat, and you're going to be pushed back? As it turns out, the answer is actually A. So it's considered that you didn't hit the Rogue because the Aegis just absorbs the damage. And just as a quick follow-up, I did a quick test afterwards. What if I did Remission on the Aegis itself, stood next to the Aegis, and then hit the Rogue, right? So in that situation, or hit the Feka, whatever. In that situation, it's considered that you hit the Aegis in close combat, and then you do get pushed back. So I thought that was interesting. That's it for this one. The third situation brings us back to PVM, and it takes us to Cylarx dungeon. In Cylarx dungeon, if you're at the boss room, then whenever you kill a mob, the next mob in the initiative order is going to resurrect it. Now, the resurrection is pretty specific. Also, by the way, thank you to Quinator, who helped me again with the PVM stuff. But yeah, so the resurrection happens pretty specifically. The way it happens is that the mob gets summoned 6 cells away, starting to the right, so like the northeast, if we're talking cardinally. So to the northeast, they get summoned 6 cells in that direction. If that cell is not available, then it moves clockwise, still at 6 cells. It moves clockwise until it finds a free spot. So my question was, what if all of those spots were taken? Then what would happen? So over here, we're going to isolate the Tinkerbear, kill a mob in such a way that Tinkerbear plays next, and we're going to have all the cells at 6 range be completely blocked. So what do you think is going to happen? So A, either the mob gets summoned within the circle that we just blocked off, B, the mob gets summoned outside of the circle that we just blocked off, or C, the mob does not get summoned. As it would turn out, in this situation, the mob gets summoned outside of the circle, moving clockwise from the cells that were available. But the reason I thought this whole thing was very interesting was because I actually got a even more specific situation in Dreams, but I wasn't able to record it. I'll overview it very quickly. If you look here, I got Cylarx and Negate together, or Nagate, whatever you say. And the thing is, all the mobs have this effect where they resurrect the next monster. Even Nagate. And Nagate was up here where I have Cylarx on the screen. And I actually killed all the mobs on the bottom, and Nagate was next. So in theory, at the start of her turn, she should resummon the next mob. And if what we just saw was true and it just summons it outside, that means that it just keeps searching clockwise, clockwise, clockwise until it finds an available cell. In this case, it would just be this one here. Should have summoned here, but it seems like there's some sort of limit because once Nagate was alone and up there, she no longer summoned. And the interesting thing is she would still cast Necromagic, which is the spell that's supposed to summon, but then nothing would happen. So it seems like there's some limit. So if we take 6 cells, it seems like between 6 and 11 cells, there's some sort of limit where it stops searching for new cells. I thought that was pretty interesting. Our last situation here has to do with a combination of two things: Sadida's infected state and Heliotrope portals. So this is actually an interesting one, and I think people are going to have answers that they're sure are right, and then you're either going to be proved correct or incorrect. Essentially, the premise here is Sadida's infected state makes it so that any spell that you cast on an individual, any infected state character also takes that same spell, given that they're enemies, right? So if you have multiple infected enemies, just as I'm showing on the screen here, if you hit one, then the other character is going to take the same amount of damage, right? Because they get hit with the spell as well. Now, the question is, what if you hit through Heliotrope portals? And you might think, oh, I know the answer. Well, here's kind of what I'm thinking. It's like, okay, if I hit through Heliotrope portals, then I guess in theory, obviously, the person who I focus with the spell as the Sadida is going to take more damage because I just hit through the portals. And the question becomes, will the other infected character also take more damage? How does it work? Like, does the spell just get duplicated, or does the spell get repeated? Like, how does it function within the game? So here are the question. I hit someone in infected state through Heliotrope portals. Are they A, going to both take the same amount of damage, which is higher? Are they both going to take the same amount of damage, which is the lower, as if I didn't hit through portals? Or 3, is the person who I focused going to take more damage and the other person going to take less damage? What do you think it is? Let's take a look. And interestingly enough, they both take the additional damage, which is really, really cool to think about. And it just makes me think about the insane potential this could have in PVM farming. I mean, you bring together a Sadida team, infect states, and just absolutely clap them through portals. I can see that just destroying mobs right and left. And I'm sure people do that. I'm sure there are Sadida teams. I personally haven't ran into any on Echo, but I'm sure that is a thing. And that's it for that.